All right, I believe we are live now. And if you, in the comment section, if y'all just want to pitch in and let us know when you can hear us. Usually it takes about 5 or 10 seconds by the time we start this and when everybody can actually hear us. So while we're waiting for confirmation that everybody can hear us, what I want to do is go ahead and start off this video and welcome everyone to the City Prepping Community live stream that we're doing today. Today, we have a special guest on, Amber from the Prepper Princess YouTube channel. Amber and I, we kind of go ways back. I brought you on my channel years ago, and I've been following your channel, and it's really awesome to see the progress and the development that you've made over the last several years. And obviously, you give a lot of great information on just practical how-to ways to save money, how to stretch your dollar to make it go a lot longer. And before we jumped on this call, I talked to Amber for a little while, and we were just kind of talking about some of the issues that I know my community has been facing based off a lot of discussions I've had with people. And it's been really just a concern of mine as we continue to see inflation. We continue to see all these issues eat away at our income, and just the cost of everything seems to go up on a daily basis. And so what we did was we posted some questions in the membership area that we're going to try to answer in this talk. But before we jump in, I just want to introduce again Amber. And again, if you haven't checked out our channel, Prepper Princess, go ahead and check it out and subscribe. Again, a lot of great and useful information. But yeah, Amber, what I'd love to do is just open it up to you and just kind of let you introduce yourself and tell us what you're about.
Sure. Hi, I'm Amber. I'm Prepper Princess on YouTube. My channel focus is mostly money saving and prepping, and I kind of move in. Sorry. I move
that always happens right on cue.
Waves. Sorry, that's just going to happen in my house, but it goes in waves from money saving to prepping. There's a delivery drop off. I just heard them drop the box on the front porch. They'll stop in a minute.
Yeah, okay.
And that's pretty much what my channel is all about.
Yeah, well, one of the things that we talked about, and what I'd love to do is kind of open it up to really allow you to kind of talk about this a little more. But one of the things I know before we start jumping into the individual questions is, at least on a high level, you know, again, you have I think a great high level view kind of top down. Can you hear me?
The dogs are really loud right now. I do apologize for that.
Yeah, no problem. If you have to get them, go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, stop.
This is always awesome. You never know whenever you do a live stream, some of the things that happen. I've had my kids walk in on me on several live streams, and it's always fun to expect the unexpected on these. So yeah, thanks for I'm back on.
Sorry.
And no problem. I was saying a second ago, I've had my daughter walk in the middle of live streams. I've had several things happen. But no, what I want, yes, people are saying reality TV. This is reality. But what I wanted to do is just kind of let you lead off. And, you know, again, the question that you and I discussed before we started was, a lot of my community, I know things are getting tight. Like I just said a second ago, if you had just, you know, kind of some simple top down tips, and at least, you know, your perspective, what you see happening right now. You and I, we both kind of came from a similar view. I grew up going through Dave Ramsey's material, or not grow up, but about 20 years ago, got really serious, and it really helped steer and turn my life around financially. And I look at the way finances were 20 years ago compared to today, with inflation and so many other things that are just growing disproportionately to our incomes. And so I've been kind of concerned with information like Dave Ramsey or these cost-saving techniques. Do they really help? Or are you advising your community to take other approaches, such as getting second jobs? Or what's your kind of takeaway message right now with your community?
It's a little bit of both. So what I always like to say is people generally will go to food first. I always say start at the really big bills and move your way down. And a lot of those bills are things that you don't see. So medical insurance, car insurance, home insurance, it's time to shop around for those first, because it can be the difference between $1,000 a year, which doesn't sound like much, but that's like $100 a month. And then after you go after the big stuff, and it's time to go after the memberships, the daily coffee, the subscriptions. And then after that, it's time to start going for the stuff that you can see, your cable, the speed of your internet. A lot of internet companies, you can call them, ask for a slower speed, and they will lower your rate. And I used to work for a internet company. You only need 6 megabytes of speed in order to do gaming online activities, streaming, stuff like that. And most companies these days have such fast internet service that in even the slowest service they have will take care of all of your needs with no lag time. And you can even ask for unpromotional, like meaning they don't promote it. Ask for a speed that is so slow it's not promoted. Ask what that speed is, and if it's 6 megs or faster, it'll power everything that you need. And then once you get to that point and you feel like, I haven't bought clothes or anything in months and you're still not able to get by, then you move on to the food and you start adding rice to your meals just to bulk them up. You start adding noodles and beans to your meals. You start replacing the meats with beans and rice and stuff like that. And then once you've gotten to that point, if you're still not able to make it, it's time to start gardening. If you still are not able to make it after you do all of those things, then it's time to realize, okay, the outgo is not the problem. It's now an income issue. And that's where you have to start thinking about second jobs, part-time jobs, side gigs, Uber, Lyft, even working at a local pizza joint doing delivery if that's something that's available in your area. Maybe working weekends only at a movie theater. Something simple, something that'll keep you occupied. Maybe you'll get some perks out of it, like free popcorn or free dinner or something. I always say that I would never get a job at Starbucks because that would probably kill me because I would be drinking all of everything all day long.
Yeah.
But if that's where you're at, you have to start making extra money. And if you can't work another job, it's time to start looking into the weird stuff, the stuff that doesn't come with a W-2 form. That might be picking and selling berries. It might be picking up cans and bottles for the CRV redemption value. That does two things, or three things. It gives you exercise, it cleans up your community, and it makes you money. And it keeps you occupied and keeps you from spending your money instead of you're earning it instead of spending it. So there's a million different things that you can do, but it might have to be one step at a time.
You kind of touched on one thing that I get questioned a lot about: side hustles, extra jobs. When I first really got serious about my finances about 20 years ago, that was the first approach I took. I started a business which ended up flourishing really quickly. But, are there any particular jobs that you see that your community has either told you that have been really, really just good jobs for them? Maybe something that didn't require a lot of skill sets, but they were able to do it and make good money? Or is there, because I get asked that a lot, hey, what's a good side gig, side hustle to actually make, a decent amount of money? What do you have any recommendations apart from what you just mentioned?
No, it really depends on where you live. So if you don't want any sort of customer interaction like Uber and Lyft, if you live in a big city, there was this one guy who told me that he went through some company and he put that film on the outside of your car for an advertisement. He had his car filmed, and he made like $200 a month doing that just by having wrapped. He had his car wrapped. But when it comes to like smaller areas and rural areas, it's going to be a lot tougher. A lot tougher. You might be better if you live in a small town or a rural area. It's probably better to focus on saving money as opposed to making more.
Yeah, one of the things that I'll kind of pipe in here, because this is something that was very, kind of something I talked a lot in the past about on my channel, my own experience. I started using services like Udemy, where you can go and get a subscription and you can actually learn a new skill set, which helped you, pad your resume, or just you developed a skill that you could begin to make money off of. One of the things I always encourage is with my community is that we live in a day and age where your knowledge and your abilities often equate to better pay. And so, physical labor, some of the jobs you mentioned are a great starting point. My dad, when I remember, he would tell me stories of getting out and digging ditches, just, if he had to make money, he would. And I was raised with that kind of, background. And so, but for me, what I always try to do is go out and look for online jobs so I can do a lot of this from the comfort of my home. And that's honestly kind of what started my YouTube channel, is I was doing this on the side, and it was a fun, like sharing my experience. But I would use those type of services to continually increase my knowledge and skills. And so it's, I would encourage the audience, anybody that's watching, make sure you find ways to, like I said, almost in a sense, kind of pad your resume. People are going to be looking for that. I know one of the things that you often talk about on your channel, and by the way, let's see, it looks like everybody's still, it said, someone said the frame froze. I can still see myself moving. Okay. So I think we're good. But one of the things you talk about a lot on your channel is, saving money with food or making, stretching food. And you talked about this a second ago, but do you recommend, and this is a question I get asked a lot about stockpiling food, because one of the concerns in the community is, hey, even if you stockpile food now, it's still going to get more expensive in the future. And it already has with inflation and other issues. So I know you touch on these things, preserving food and stuff like that. So what's your advice when it comes to actually storing and rotating? I don't know if you talk about that a lot on your channel, but I'd be kind of curious to hear your thoughts.
Well, I used to have a set it and forget it mentality with the freeze dried food. And I kept that freeze dried food for, I don't know, 10 years, and it ended up expiring. And some of it hadn't expired, and I tried getting rid of it, and a food bank wouldn't even take it, which was really strange. But during the lockdowns, I actually opened up all of those freeze dried foods, and I am not a picky eater. Like, I'll eat just about anything, but I found most of it to be not just unpalatable, it was inedible, it was disgusting. So I don't recommend freeze dried food. I just don't. From those bigger companies. And again, I used to buy them all the time. I would recommend buying what you eat and having a rotating food stock. That way, I mean, you can still take advantage of the cheap prices that are happening now, and yes, they will go up, but it's a lot better than storing food that when you finally do need it, you realize it's really disgusting.
Right.
And also store what you eat. So and I'm not judging anybody. If all you eat is Pop-Tarts and Bagel Bites, fill your freezer with Bagel Bites and store as many Pop-Tarts as you can. Don't store things that you're not going to eat.
Yeah, that's I'll be honest, when I first got into prepping, I started storing food items. I was like, I don't think I'll ever eat this, but if the apocalypse, if the end of the world comes, that's all I've got and I'll live with it. But yeah, you're right, because then I don't add that into rotation. It goes to waste, and that's just not a smart approach. But let me ask you this, for you personally, what are some of the kind of the staple foods that you store away that you found that easily rotate and store very well? Because you mentioned freeze-dried food, when you pulled it out, just wasn't any good. But what are some simple things you found that you can store that actually do really well in rotation?
Well, okay, so rice and beans are good. Not only do I add those as a filler in a lot of my meals, but I use them to make the base of my dog food. I make my own dog food to save money. It's up to like $2 or $3 a pound now, and I'm able to make it for like 75 cents a pound. But beyond rice and beans, my favorite things to store are oatmeal and soybeans. And the reason for that is oatmeal, of course, you can heat it up, add water, and eat it just like oatmeal. But you can also take it and you can put it into a blender, and then you can make your own oatmeal, or you can put it in a blender and make your own oat flour. So you can actually make your own pancakes, your own milk, and have your own oatmeal. So that's a really big one that I keep on hand, and I keep a lot of it, like 25 pounds on hand. And I eat oatmeal a lot, so it's heart healthy. It's really good for you. The other one is soybeans. I get them for about $20, $25 on Amazon. I think it's like I don't know how many pounds it is, but it's a lot of soybeans. I've got a Soyabella soy milk maker, so I can take those beans. I can put them in water and cook them, eat them as is. I can make it into soy milk, or I can make it into tofu. And also the pulp. I can't think of what the word is right now. It's okara. So the okara pulp actually has nutritional value, and that will also go into the dog food. And as soon as they see that okara going into the dog food, they go crazy. They absolutely love it. It's almost like sweet to them. So rice and beans, just like everybody else, but oatmeal and soybeans. I also have tons of cans of soup, and then like my favorite stuff, like green beans, peas, corn, vegetables, lots of vegetables.
Okay. No, it's interesting you say oatmeal. I usually have it in the morning. I'll blend it in my shake with my protein powder, and then I'll end up at the end of the night eating oatmeal again with eggs and some berries. So yeah, it's become a big part of my diet, a big, like you said, kind of a filler, and it's a good source of carbohydrates.
Yeah.
So,
It's
okay,
the
no,
good
that makes,
kind of carb.
what's that?
It's a good carb, so it
Yeah,
doesn't just turn into fat. It slowly digests, and it gives you that extra energy for like several hours.
right, right. I believe it's low glycemic, so it doesn't just automatically dissolve in your bloodstream.
Yeah.
Okay, well, and you touched on one. This is going to be one of the questions that was asked in the community is, um, you know, preserving your own food, such as canning versus buying packaged options. I don't know how much. I forget how much canning you've actually done. Have you covered canning on your channel? Okay, Zero. I was about to say I couldn't recall you covering canning on the channel. So, um, are there any other methods that you use to preserve your food? Because you talked about a second ago, buying in bulk, and I think that's one of the things that people often overlook. If something's on sell at the store, and you see it, how do you get that stored away? What are some of the tips that you found to make sure that it stays good and you can use it down the road in your rotation?
Right. Well, the rice and beans I just put in a 2.5 gallon bucket. I'm getting older. I don't like carrying around a 5 gallon bucket, so I put them in 2.5 gallon buckets. Put it in the oxygen sealer and just seal it up. And then when I'm ready to use it, I rotate it out. But when it comes to okay, so if you, I know that you're not like you watch my channel, but not all the time. I do a lot of foraging, apricots, blackberries, mulberries, figs, like you name it. Most of my stuff is like dehydrating. I dehydrate it and then I put it in those vacuum seal bags and then I put it in the freezer. So instead of freeze drying, I dry freeze my stuff. And that's to me, I got the dehydrator for free 10 years ago from a coworker, and I use it all the time. That's my main method of storing that sort of stuff. Because I don't want the food to go to waste, and if I'm growing it or somebody gives it to me, I'm going to use it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Dehydration, it's a very low cost entry point into food storage. And that's one of the things is, yeah, we've done videos on freeze drying, which is an amazing technology that you can, freeze dry your own food. But the cost difference between a dehydrator and when you jump up to a freeze dryer is,
Yeah.
it's a night and day difference. So, no, no, I appreciate that. And before we move on, because some of the subject or some of the questions deal with banking and other stuff, but before we jump into that, is there any other, like food? Because obviously, as preppers, food is one of the biggest concerns that most of the community has, especially if we're talking about a grid down situation or just, again, with the cost of everything going up right now. Is there any other, apart from what you just talked about, buying in bulk, storing away with dehydrating, rotate, eat what you store and store what you eat? Is there any other tips or tricks that you found that, because again, I know you've done some videos that have done millions of views, different ways to, just make food on the cheap. Is there anything else that you feel like is a big tip that is often overlooked?
So, okay, so here's one of the chicken. I know it sounds silly, but you cook a chicken, and most people, what they do is they cook the chicken, they take off the parts they like, the rest goes to waste, and then they throw it in the garbage. Well, first of all, take all the meat off. Make sure you take all the meat off. But then the bones and the carcass and anything that's left should be going in the crock pot, and then adding just salt and pepper, maybe some carrots or celery, and then some noodles. And that little tiny thing that you were going to throw away anyway, the carcass, can make another 10 meals. I mean, 10 chicken soup meals. All you have to do is cut up a little bit of bread and you've got chicken soup and toast, or chicken soup and you can make grilled cheese sandwich. I mean, that's 10 meals that you were essentially throwing away, and it's delicious. That's, to me, the chicken is like the biggest thing. And also, soon, next year, I'm going to be updating my fishing license and doing more fishing and doing meal prep with the fish. But I would recommend that if you are a fisherman, don't do catch and release anymore. Take that fish home, clean it up, and preserve it for later.
So your takeaway is make sure whatever you have, especially if it's meat, find a way to use every single element of it before you throw anything away.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, no, I appreciate you bringing that up, and I would love to actually, again, work with you on future videos because, again, there's so many things that I often look when I'm cooking. I'm like, I don't know what to do with this leftover part. I'm not going to eat it right now, but I hate to, I feel bad throwing anything away. So that would definitely be, yeah. I'm sure I have some video ideas that are coming to mind. I'll follow up with you on. How about that? So,
okay.
But yeah, let me move on to the next series of questions. We just spent about 20 minutes kind of talking about food, and there was questions in the community about bank accounts, just basic finances. The first question is, do you use any bank accounts? I know there's some videos you've done on some other, websites where you can maximize, or get yield. I'll just throw this out there. I mean, one of the websites I found a long time ago is maxmyinterest.com. That's maxmyinterest.com. I've been using that for a while, and it allows you to throw money into an account and then it will rotate through whoever has the best rates. But do you have an account, or do you have ways to actually, get any kind of yield out of it, or what's your approach when it comes to that?
So right now I have two bank accounts. I've got one at a local bank right here, right up the street, where they know my name. I live in a small town. They know my name. They know a whole bunch about me. But the only reason that I really have that bank account is so I can get cash out, because I do online banking. I'm with Capital One. Capital One, they have a checking account. I don't know if they have it right now. They had a checking account deal where if you sign up for their checking account, you get like $500, something like that. But I use mostly their savings account, which has over 4% interest. Okay. So I'm not associated or affiliated with them or anything like that, but I use Capital One and then that local bank. And I'll go ahead and answer another question about the questions. I was asked, how do you use and reinvest rewards from the Fidelity 2% rewards card you said you use in mutual funds? So yeah, I have a Fidelity credit card. And the Fidelity you can take the money, you go to the fidelity.com where your credit card is, and up in the tab, you'll see a place that says rewards and benefits. You click on the rewards and benefits, and then it'll just give you a list, and it'll direct you to create a fidelity.com account, which is an investment account. And then you can take your rewards points and put them in that investment account. One of the things that I've noticed with my credit card lately is that they used to be doing things where if you wanted to get a Lowe's or Home Depot gift card with your rewards, you could get you could use 5,000 points but get 7,500 points worth of a gift card. They're not doing that anymore. You can tell that the economy's kind of going down a little bit, so they're not offering those really good rewards as much anymore. So, but the thing is that I also found out that when you do that, like, it's double the amount of points when you do it into your investment instead of as a gift card. So I'm doing nothing but investing into my Fidelity account right now, using my rewards.
Okay. No, that's I know I just, there's so many different options, it seems like, on the market. The ones I use, and again, I'm not affiliated with them. It's let me just put this in the chat. They give you 5.6 roughly on the savings there, and I've been using that for a while. So I'll just put this here in the chat if anybody's interested. Again, it's maxmyinterest.com. I don't, they don't sponsor me or anything like that. So, but yeah, I think to your point, whenever you can find ways to get some kind of reward out of whatever you're using, go for it. Because again, the banks are going to make money off you, and so might as well make some money in return. So
yeah, yours is higher than mine, so go with his if you feel like it.
Okay, so I like some of these other questions because they kind of touch on some of the things that we talked about earlier when we get into finances. Let's see. One of the questions was, and this is question number 10 on the list of questions here. Do you suggest well, actually, I don't know. I think we talked about that, but I would like to bring it up again about if there's something in particular that you want to buy. And this particular question was, hey, if you want to get a generator, for example, do you suggest a side hustle? I mean, I guess really what the question comes down to, if there's something, a big purchase that you feel is necessary, have you personally ever gone out and done this? Have you gone out and like, hey, I'll just pick up another job for a couple of weeks or a month or whatever, so I can save up to buy that large ticket item?
Well, when I was saving up to buy this house, so I was saving up to buy it in cash. When I moved to Arizona, I started saving for 3 years. I did get a job. I was doing YouTube also, but I got a job, a full-time job. I sold pretty much everything I could. I sold my gold, my silver, my car, anything, all of my generators, like anything I could sell to make money to pay for this house in cash, I sold it. So Yeah, you can look for a side hustle, definitely. If you have stuff sitting around, I would recommend selling it on Facebook Marketplace. It'll give you a few bucks, so you don't have to go through all that extra effort of having like a yard sale on your front lawn. I think that that's a really good way to do it. But yeah, I would definitely take a side hustle in order to purchase something that was a priority to me.
Yeah, that's a good point, especially if you're going out and you've got items sitting around, finding ways to turn it into cash instead of it just sitting there. And this kind of ties in this next question. I'm just kind of hopping around these questions, but I'm trying to obviously dovetail them into what we're talking about. But have you ever got into bartering specifically?
Yep.
Have you ever
I have one going right now.
What's that?
I have one going right now, a barter.
Really? Yeah, I'd love to hear about that. Talk about that a little.
All right. So e-bikes. I get all these e-bikes, and I'm sorry. I have to tell you all that I get the e-bikes for free to do the product reviews. They didn't pay me or anything, but I got the e-bikes for free, and I do love riding them. But this house was a major fixer-upper. I'm talking foundation, rafters, roof, you name it. It needed new plumbing, new bathroom, new kitchen, all of it. Everything had to be done all from like basically scratch. Right now, I've got one of my e-bikes. The contractor who came in and refinished my floors last week, on the first day he was here, I made him go on an e-bike. Like, I was like, take this e-bike out, just ride it around the block real quick, because I know that I barter. And I know that I kind of like get a feel of what they're like. Okay, would he like the trike, or is he adventurous and stuff like that? So I pick a specific e-bike out, and I'm like, go take this for a ride. Come back in 10 minutes and tell me what you think. I just wanted a second opinion on it. And then he'll come back. He came back, and I said, by the way, I barter for e-bikes. So, if you want to do a project around here, I'll pay you in an e-bike. And after he finished the floor, he goes, hey, that e-bike you made me ride like 4 days ago? I want it. And so I said, okay. And he goes, what projects do you have around here that I can do? And I said, well, I need a pergola. Can you build me a pergola? And he goes, yeah. And so he contacted me, and he's going to be building me a pergola in exchange for an e-bike. I have also done other things. I remember there was a fence repair barter somewhere in there where I repaired somebody's fence and they gave me something, but I don't remember what it was. But yeah, barter goes both ways. And it's not always bartering labor. You can barter stuff you've got sitting around, like a coffee table you don't want that somebody really likes, or say, and beef jerky was a big one too, because I make my own beef jerky. A lot of girls at my work used to barter. They would want my beef jerky so bad they would bring me stuff for it. So it's a lot of different things.
Okay. No, it's something that when I've lived in other countries, bartering is just a way of, it's a very common approach. And I think here in America, we're so afraid to negotiate. We're so uncomfortable with it. I'm sure when you're doing bartering, there's a strong negotiation back and forth on things. Let me ask you this, because it kind of ties into it. Do you have any specific negotiation tips? Because again, that's part of what you're doing in bartering. It's identifying, okay, I'm going to give you this if you will do this, or give me that. Is there anything in particular that you would advise, somebody that's starting out, understanding how to barter and negotiate?
Well, when it comes to negotiations, I don't negotiate. I know that sounds awful. I absolutely refuse. I find it insulting. I know it's normal in other cultures. I hate negotiating, but I'll barter to my heart's content. Yeah, if you want to trade something and it's an item, make them want that item more. Like the e-bike, I told him, go take a ride. I don't, just go take it, have fun. The only thing I can imagine is to make them want it more, and maybe let them use the item once as a test run, something like that. But I mean, I'm not a professional barterer or anything. Just do what you think is best. If they're trustworthy, let them borrow it.
I like that strategy. Kind of get them hooked on the product. That's
Yeah.
That's kind of smart from a business perspective. Let them get the feel of it, get the emotional attachment. I personally found in most negotiations, or when you're working with someone, if they have an emotional attachment or they don't have walk away power, it makes it harder for them to say no to the deal that you're trying to work through. So, I've had to learn the hard way, when you find something you like, you can't get emotionally attached, because then you're like, oh, I really want that thing. And then,
You'll do anything to get it.
You touched on this a second ago, and one of the questions ties into this, is in regards to pets. And I know your dogs are a part of your channel, and forgive me, what's their names again? Someone just mentioned it a second ago.
Nala?
Which one?
Nala, the little one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So some of the questions here is, how do you save money on preparing for your pets, including food and supplies? You touched on this a second ago with, adding, I think, rice in there. Is there any other, because again, the cost of pet food it's expensive. So obviously I know you want to take care of your animals, make sure they're healthy, but how do you approach that when it comes to, just food in general for them?
Well, food. Okay. So I was actually at Walmart the other day, and I was talking to this guy. We were in the dog food aisle. I was like, man, is it just me, or did the bags get smaller? And he's like, and we had this whole long conversation about it. But yeah, I got I think it was a 12-pound bag for maybe it was 16 pounds for like $30. And I almost felt weird because I have somebody coming to watch the dogs for a couple days anyway. And house sitting and stuff like that. So I do keep it on hand, but that's like $2-3 a pound. And that's just, to me, crazy. There are a lot of foods, and by the way, dog food is also a new invention. It didn't even start until really the 1970s. Dogs usually ate table scraps from what people ate. But, vets know a little bit different. So there are some things that dogs can't eat. Onions, grapes. There's a long list of what they can't eat, but there's a lot of stuff that we eat that they can eat. Rice and beans, you can feed them that. Carrots, they love carrots. Apples, meat, any meat that we have, stuff like that. So right now, I put in my crock pot, I think it was rice and beans, potatoes. I cut up a sweet potato and put it in there for them. And then I took my old bacon grease that I was saving, and I just put the bacon grease into the crock pot with this stuff. So they've got bacon flavored rice and beans and potatoes in there. And they go, when I'm feeding them the dry kibble stuff, like in the bag, versus the stuff that I make for them in the crock pot, if they know that it's going to be the stuff from the crock pot, they come running. If it's the kibble, they're just kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
So they like the homemade stuff better. It is better for their digestion. And the whole reason I got started on making dog food was because Rocky, when I first got him, I'm sorry, but he had really bad diarrhea. And I took him to the doctor, and the vet, sorry, not the doctor. And the vet wanted me to put him on this dog food that was $120 per bag back then. That was like 7 years ago. Who knows how much it would cost now? And I decided, instead of doing that, I'll read the ingredients on the bag, and then I'll make what is on the bag. And that turned out to be 75 cents a pound. Because you have to remember, rice is like $1 a pound at the store, but it makes the 1 pound of rice turns into 4 pounds when you make it. So you're really paying $1 for 4 pounds. So you're paying 25 cents a pound for rice. Same thing with the beans, except instead of quadrupling, it's tripled. So when you buy 1 pound of beans at the store for $1, you're really buying 3 pounds for $1. So it's 33 cents a pound. So you just have to do the math in your head, and it works out.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. By the way, have you done a video on your channel about making food for your pets?
Yeah, I've made 3, but nobody ever watches them. Everybody says, I want to see what to do about dogs, and then I make a video and nobody watches. And then with Nala, so Nala is the first of all, she's the first small dog I've ever had. And she's the first dog I've ever had that grows hair, not fur. So, and her nails grow like crazy. Rocky has never needed a nail trim ever. And he's never needed any sort of washing or anything. Rocky's very easy maintenance. Nala's a little diva. So she has to get her nails trimmed and haircuts, because if I don't cut her hair, those little round weed spiky things get stuck in her hair. So I have to cut her hair. And I was like, you want like $50 to cut my dog's hair? I don't think so. So I bought a clipper and a nail. It's not a nail cutter. It's like that little drill thing that you use on dogs' nails.
Okay.
I got a set for like $40, and I've had her for 2 years now, and I've been doing that.
Wow.
And yeah, okay, so she doesn't look like a show dog, but you know, she's cute and it works. Nala, come here. She's probably outside.
Bring on another guest.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the questions that I often think about, and it's one of the questions that was asked, and it's kind of ties into this, is one of the phrases I often tell people is, you know, buy once, cry once. And that's usually in reference to buying a quality product, whether that's a piece of gear that you think you'll need for survivalism. But one of the questions, and it kind of ties into this, is it better to buy expensive items now or to wait for prices, you know, like a Black Friday sale or something like that? And I'm going to have a second part of that question, but, you know, how do you typically, if there's something that you're like, hey, I really want or need this item. I realize those are two different things, wants or needs, but how do you typically approach items that you realize are going to be high price tickets? Do you wait for, say, you know, for a discount, a sell? Do you shop for it? You know, maybe look for it used? Because I often recommend people get something that's a high quality item used over buying something new and cheap. So how do you approach that when you look at high ticket items like that?
So I start with free, and then I work to cheap, and then if it's not available in either of those places, then I'll go to full price. A lot of times you can just put something out there on your community board or on your Facebook page saying, hey, I need this, whatever it is. Does anybody have an extra laying around? If you need like a solar panel, there are people out there who have solar panels. They're like, I won't give it to you for free, but you know, I'll take $10 for it, and it's like a 100-watt panel. That's great, perfect. That's 10 cents on the dollar.
Right.
But if you can't do that, and you can't get it for free, then you go to full price. And me personally, I don't wait for sales because I worked in retail for, I don't know, 20 plus years. I don't do Black Friday because just, I remember them and I remember working them, and you know, it's so funny having a customer look at you and be like, really sucks that you have to work on Black Friday, and you're just standing there like, you're the reason I'm here. you know, thanks. If you would stop coming in, I wouldn't have to work on Thanksgiving. Anyway, so I don't really wait for sales, but you have to realize no matter what you're going to buy, if it's something technical, if it's like a cell phone or a generator or whatever, the second you buy it, it's going to lose value. So it's always best to try and get it used first, because if you pay $500 for it, whether it's on sale or not, you won't be able to sell it next week for $300. It's just, you know, almost everything we own is a depreciating asset. Just keep that in mind.
Right. Yeah, it's where I live locally in our area, we have you know, Facebook Marketplace. Craigslist, I don't think is as popular as it used to be. Then the other one on my phone, I think it's called OfferUp. It's just kind of a local one that I don't know if it's the same in your area. People tend to use that one. But have you found any other apps in particular that you've like, hey, apart from Facebook Marketplace, that you found like, here's the place to go to get good deals?
No. Sorry. No. Same with you. Craigslist isn't what it used to be. So yeah, I'm just pretty much strictly Facebook. eBay charges way too much in shipping if you're a buyer and in fees if you're a seller. So eBay, I'm not really that big on eBay either unless it's a very specific product. So yeah, I'm pretty much just marketplace for used stuff.
Okay. No, that's fair enough. I know each kind of like city usually has its own whatever system that community kind of gravitates toward, but Facebook Marketplace. My only frustration is whenever you post something, you get 50 people asking if it's still available. And then it's like, and you never hear back from them. So yeah, what I'd love to do right now is we've got, you know, some people, I'd love to open it up to questions and answers. And, you know, while we're waiting for people, if y'all have any specific questions, feel free to post those here in the comments. I've got a moderator that's going to take those questions and elevate them, and then we'll go through and start answering. But if you have specific questions for Amber on, you know, ways to save money, ways, you know, whatever you want to pick her brain while we have her on this call, I would love to have, you know, you post those up and we'll try to, you know, answer them. Again, we've got about 20 minutes. I always try to, you know, respect your time, both as a guest and the community. But if there's anything that y'all would have, any questions you have, feel free to post those. And in the meantime, while we're kind of waiting for that to come around, I'm going to try to look through some of these questions that we did talk about. One of the ones that we didn't cover, and it kind of touched on this a second ago when we talked about bank accounts, but you and I, again, we both kind of came from that same background with Dave Ramsey. His recommendation was always keep 1,000 cash on hand, whether you hide it in a picture frame or something, just have it there in case of an emergency. How much cash do you recommend people keeping on hand, and how do you protect it so that people don't find it?
Okay, so I'm not gonna. I think that what that person meant to say was, how much money do you keep on hand and where do you keep it? Which is something that I can't say. It's going to be a different dollar amount for everybody. If your house is paid off, I recommend having 2 years worth of property taxes on hand, in case the ship really hits the sand. Get it? Ship hits the sand. In case that really happens, like really, you'll still have the cash on hand to pay your property taxes and keep your house for at least a couple of years while things get back together. If you live in an apartment, I don't know, because if things get so bad, I mean, you're not going to make it. I mean, you're not going to be able to stay in your apartment for very long, and I don't know if you'd want to. I mean, who knows? But yeah, I guess 2 months worth of rent would be adequate to, but I don't know, because again, I wouldn't want to stay in an apartment if something were to go down. I would need to be in a house. Where to keep it? Okay, so just a couple of ideas. If you have a carpeted room, can you pull up the carpet in a corner and stuff some cash under there where nobody will see it? If you have carpeted closets, maybe put it under the carpet under your hamper, something like that. I would recommend looking up articles on thieves and where they look first. A lot of people are like, I'm just going to put it in like a green bean can and put it in the back of my shelf. Well, if things get really bad, they're not just going to be looking for money. They're going to be looking for food too. So they're going to take the green beans thinking it's green beans and get all your cash. On top of light fixtures, and this is not something I do, but it's something that a friend of mine who was an ex-robber, he like went to prison for it. No, like he went to prison for it legit for like 20 years. But he would and he was a drug dealer, but he would put the money on top of a light fixture in his house where nobody could see it, and if somebody comes in and steals everything, like they would have to seriously like steal a light fixture in order to find his money. That's where he kept it. But if you have a safe, you can get cheap safes that you can even drill a hole into the wall, like inside of your closet, like maybe behind your clothes on the right side or on the left side, so they're not really looking. And you can drill that into your closet space between the 2x4s, and you can put it in there. They also, if you go onto Amazon, they have like fake clocks that the back is like this thick, maybe 2 or 3 inches, and you can open the clock, and it's a working clock, but it's like a little shelf in there, so you can put stuff in there. There's also, they sell fake registers, like air conditioning registers that you can put a little hole in, or I don't even think you need to put a hole in your wall, but you can buy a fake register. Amazon also sells hiding furniture. So you can buy a bookshelf that has a secret open slot where the bottom shelf, like you can just move it, and then there's like a space there's a lot of space under it. I don't know if thieves would steal a bookshelf, or books, but those are just a couple of different ideas right there.
No, those are great ideas. It's that's another video that I've had in the backlog in my queues to create, some different ideas where you can stash things away. And I'll, some of the comments here: hide money inside of an ottoman from Allison Highland. Let's see. Oh, Mike, you mentioned keep cash in the pet snake tank.
There you go.
I like that one. Here's a good question, and this is for you, Amber, but it's SO4J TV. You ask, do you think of yourself more as a prepper or a minimalist? Because I've definitely noticed that trend in your channel that when you first started years ago, that was your whole brand as being a prepper. But I've noticed, you've you've done a great job of just like, hey, here's ways to save money. And I think you've kind of moved toward a minimalist, but I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, how you see yourself.
I don't really see myself as a minimalist. I think that's just a design preference. I mean, I'm not purposely going out and becoming, like, getting rid of stuff on purpose for the purpose of becoming a minimalist. I just don't like stuff. I was having a conversation the other day. These 3 paintings behind me, I got rid of the twin size bed in my guest room when I got it, and when I got the floors refinished, and now it's my office. I didn't even want these paintings up. I don't like having anything on the walls, but I think I'm more of a prepper. I'm not really a minimalist. I'm just like, that's what people see in the background, but they don't see in my drawers and in my closets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's I just think you've done a phenomenal job with your channel, encouraging people to just be smart with their money, especially in light of everything that's happening in the world right now. I know a lot of people, even today, stock market's been correcting, and I know a lot of people are kind of getting that jittery vibe. Okay, what's going to happen next? And but yeah, let me see if there's any other some of the comments here that people acknowledge you've done a great job. And yeah, it's been really interesting to watch your maturity and your growth on the channel, to see, just obviously people are coming because they want advice on everything that's happening. One of the other things, let me back up. One of the apartment dwellers, Carol Gold Boyd, she recommended 3 months of rent and make plans to go elsewhere. You cannot homestead in an apartment. Yeah. And I think that's well said. I mean, I've tried to do videos to encourage people how you can practically prepare, but like Carol pointed out, at the end of the day, you're only going to be able to go so far in an apartment. I think it's important that if you are in an apartment, you do have a plan, that if things get worse, or a prolonged whatever situation you want to call it, SHTF, make sure you have some place that you can eventually go, or know somebody.
I don't promote this or anything like that, but there was this lady who was I saw on YouTube a video. This girl was taking her grandfather in their car somewhere. Her grandfather lived through the Great Depression, and he was taking her to where him and his family squatted on a property through the Great Depression. Now, I'm not saying that everybody should start squatting, but if there's like a rural property where you can set up some chickens and goats and nobody's using it, become an unknown caretaker to the property if you can. But always understand that it's not your property, and if they ask you to leave, you should leave. And don't destroy the property, improve it if you can. If I were a homeowner, which I am, and a landlord, which I am, and my house had no renters in it, and I couldn't get anybody to rent the place, and I go over there to visit and there's somebody in there, but the house is immaculately maintained and super clean and the electricity's on, there's a good chance I might not kick them out. Just saying.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting perspective. I just purchased some land here recently, and one of the things that we're doing on our channel is trying to teach people, the basics of homesteading, how to do gardening, how to do all these projects that I just need a little more space to do it than I currently even have in my own house. And so it's something that, again, we often don't think about, especially in the context of an apartment. What do we do if, there's some major prolonged event? Having friends, knowing people where you can get help. I mean, let's just be practical and honest here. It's something that people really need to start thinking through, because if something protracted draws out, having that already prepared, I think, is going to be smart. But let me see. I'm trying to read through if there's any other questions. One of the comments here, and I'm going to put this here, is we paid rent advance to keep a buffer of rent credit. If our finances tank in a crisis, we don't have to worry about housing immediately. I think that brings up a good point, because if you were to put the order a priority, from obviously as survivalists, as preppers, whatever you want to call us, we look, shelter's your number one, right? It's if you follow the principles of 3 minutes of air, 3 hours without shelter, 3 days without water, these kind of things, and shelter has to be a high priority. It's one of those things that I think I would encourage the community to really think through. What are you going to do if there is a situation? And again, to this point that the comment made here is, have that plan in place, have some finances at least to cover your shelter, and they'll give you time if you lose a job, if you have an emergency situation. But again, we often cover food so much that we often forget about that. Let me see here. Trying to read through some of these additional. Let me see. I'm going to elevate this one. This apartment dweller has 4 different people at houses property. If I had a discussion with all of them, it's not an assumption. Like I said, yeah, I like that, Carol. You do point out that you do have a plan in place in case anything comes up. So I would encourage the community to definitely think that through if you do live in an apartment. Let me see. Here's another question. Prepper Princess, how do you manage a good community or contacts? Hard to know who to talk to or trust in close proximity. And Laura, one of the things, and again, we try to cover this a lot on the channel that often comes up, with community, because people, at the end of the day, if there's something that happens, having those people around you, that community, knowing people is going to be so critical. I try to cover this a lot on my channel, how to encourage building a community with people locally. Is that something, and again, I'd be kind of curious, is that something you feel like you built? Do you have people that you trust in your area to either work with, barter, help each other if there's an emergency situation? How do you personally approach that, Amber?
Yeah, I think that's an ongoing thing that I'm working on. I am working on improving my relationships with my neighbors. Not too fond of my neighbors that are right next to me, but if you go one house over if you pass those 2 right beside me and go to the next ones, I really, really like my neighbors. My neighbor just texted me. She made some macaroni something, and she wanted me to come over and get some. She's always having me go over there and get her fruit, and then I'll dehydrate it and give her half. And she's, like I said, always giving me food. I think her way of loving people is through food, and she just gives me everything off of her trees. And I bring her stuff too. Another thing that I do is I'm going to church. So the people I know my pastor and his wife, they know me by name. And a lot of people in the congregation are starting to get to know me by name too, just through my reputation, which you want to have a good reputation, absolutely trustworthy, integrity sort of reputation, and just build on that. Don't try to rush it. Don't try to hurry and make friends. Just naturally build that sort of relationship through trust and giving and stuff like that. And it might take a little while, but you'll eventually know who you can trust. And another thing about trust, it's not just about who can I barter with, who can I do this. And again, and also Joe, my contractor, is one who I would absolutely trust and barter with, and maybe even start a business during a depression. But it's also, you have to realize who will not rat you out, but who will accidentally let it slip to somebody else about what you have. Loose lips sink ships. And as much as I love my neighbor who gives me all this food, I don't trust her when it comes to accidentally telling something she shouldn't have said. So I would never tell her, hey, I've got 20 generators in my closet and 6 e-bikes. Know anybody who wants to, whatever. So, or I've got, 10 pieces of gold and $10,000 in my drawer, but don't tell anyone. So just make sure you keep whatever information you can private, but don't be so private that you can't build a community. You just have to be careful and decisive in who you talk to and what you tell them.
Yeah, I'll be honest, that's one that's it's tough, and I get asked a lot, and I try to create real useful content, whatever you want to call it, around the subject. And my advice is kind of like you. I just, for example, my son's in Boy Scouts. He used to be in Cub Scouts, and I've got to know the fathers. A lot of them are, they're ex-military or active military, and they're very prepper adjacent already in their mindset. That's just something that's kind of built into them. And so these are men that I've known for years, and I trust them. And if something were to happen, we would, take care of each other. But again, I'm careful what I say. As you just pointed out, the term in our community is OPSEC, operational security. Once you release that information to whoever it is, that information now can be dispersed very quickly. So there's a fine line between being paranoid, but yet being conscious of what you tell people. And I love that. So that's a great point. I'm going to read a few of the other comments here. A lot of the questions that are comments are coming up are about dehydrators. And by the way, you mentioned that you had I know you're not sponsored by this company or anything like that, but it's the dehydrator that you said you've used for 10 years now? I'm just curious, which model is that?
I can go look, but I don't know offhand.
Oh, okay. I was just curious if you knew that one because 10 years, that's pretty good. That's actually done pretty well. So,
Yeah, my
what
my
do you,
coworker gave it to me.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
What's your favorite things to dehydrate, by the way?
beef jerky. I mean, you need to dehydrate. It's my beef jerky's awesome. But other than that, I like my second would be apricots. I love dried apricots. They're delicious and amazing,
Oh,
and they keep
okay.
you regular too.
Something we have to talk about at our age. Huh? That'll be
Yeah.
a whole nother video. So, um, let's see. Yeah, it looks like if there's any other questions, we have about 4 or 5 more minutes here, and feel free to post those up, and we'll elevate them to ask them. But before we, wrap things up, I do again just want to, if you haven't checked out our channel, just go to YouTube and type in Prepper Princess, and you'll find it. How many subscribers are you up to now? About 250,000, 300?
I honestly don't really look.
Okay.
322, 755 as of right now.
Nice. I remember bringing you on the channel years ago, and it was I want to say you were around 50,000 or so. So it's really exciting to see the journey of growth that you've had. And again, congratulations to you. It's well deserved. I know you've been able to bring a lot of practical information from your own life, and so people seem to really, at least they vibe with it. So thank you for everything that you're putting out there.
Oh, thanks.
Let me ask. Here's another one. And again, I know neither one of us are, investors or provide, investment information, but I know my community's probably sweating it right now, looking at the stock market's been, doing a lot of funky stuff over the last few days. And I know everybody kind of gets spooked when these things happen. Um, but let's see. Here's a question: with the economy tanking, are you planning on investing more? Again, if you don't want to talk about investments, that's okay. I know that's kind of a personal, but how do you typically approach that whenever the economy is kind of going sideways?
I can. Okay, so I make about, let's see, my dividend. Okay, investing. Sorry, you kind of caught me off guard. I'm not investing more this year. I'm taking out the dividends that I earn, and I'm buying gold, silver, and crypto, which I never thought I would buy. But I'm not freaking out. I just feel like right now, if if the stock market completely crashes, it crashes, and our dollar's worth nothing, and there's nothing. What are you going to do? Nothing. But those tangible assets like gold and silver are like great for a collapse, but otherwise they don't really do much. They just retain their value. So I'm looking into crypto, and I've put in a few $1,000, but nothing I would recommend, and nothing big or anything like that. I'm just trying to diversify. So I've got the rental property, I've got the retirement accounts. Now it's time to go to gold, silver, and crypto just to diversify.
Yeah, it's again, I I did some crypto investments a while back. Had kind of mixed results, but I've been cautious. I think on my channel talking about it a lot because there's a high degree of risk. It's a very kind of binary. You either go super high or super low really fast.
Yeah, and I cannot give any advice on what I literally picked one out of a hat. So
Yeah.
like I have no expertise in crypto at all.
Yeah. No, that's I appreciate your honesty on that. I'm always real cautious to get into crypto on the channel because I've had companies approach me asking me to promote it, but I'm like, you just have to you have to understand you're going into it's not FDIC backed. If you buy it and something happens, it's a scam. There's no way to recover it. And I could tell you a big story on that one day, but that's I'd have to drink a big beer to talk about that one. So let's just say there was some tie-in to the whole FTX. I'll tell you that much. So yeah, kind of got burned, but I've seen on the flip side, some upside. It's just fortunately it's balanced out. Let me see. Let me ask one last question, and we'll wrap this up because we're running out of time here. But I think you did a great job at the beginning of giving some very high level advice. But if there's one thing to this community, specifically the preparedness community, when it comes to finances and everything that you've learned over the last several years, whether it's simple or advanced advice, what would be your kind of takeaway here?
Well, I think that life was meant to be simple, and we overcomplicate things. When it comes to preparing, what is real food? What is real energy? What is real need? And what is real money? I think it was Phil Jackson, who was a evangelist, said those things, and he said, "For what's coming, that's what you need to really realize." So when it comes to prepping, that is the most important piece of advice. Decide what those things are to you, and then act on it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that. It's and again, I'll finish with my own personal kind of on what you just said. I've had to make some decisions here lately, and you and I have talked offline, kind of what we our concerns about the future, where we see things going. And I try not to overburden my community too much with what keeps me up at night, but I've got some, I've got some concerns about what's coming down the pipe, what we can all clearly see between inflation and so many other issues that are plaguing the world. But I'm in the phase now where it's like I'm trying to be more proactive in preparing, whether that, again, starting to really dig into gardening a lot more, rain harvesting, all these things that I believe are going to be self-sufficient skill sets that people need to really, things that our grandparents did. It's kind of the way I always phrase it, things that previous generations knew and understood that we've kind of lost track of. And it's going to take some work. But again, I appreciate your insight in all this. It's especially when it comes to finances. And I'll finish up with this. If you haven't already checked it out, in the description section of Amber's video, she has a book that she wrote how many years ago?
4?
4 years ago. So it's on, and it's, what's the name of the book? And it's on Amazon, right?
Living on Almost Nothing. Yeah, it's on Amazon in e form and paperback.
Okay, so Living on Nothing.
Living on Almost Nothing.
Okay. So yeah, if you're on Amazon, definitely go check that out. But again, I want to just thank you so much for coming on the channel. Again, it's been several years since you and I have done one of these type of videos, and we definitely need to do a lot more. So again, I appreciate the time. And again, so thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Awesome. Well, again, everyone, go check out her book, go check out her channel. And again, we'll see you on the next one. Take care, everyone. Stay safe out there.